Strikes are bad for the university system. They are disruptive. They disrupt the academic calendar. The university grinds to a halt, and the efficiency takes a dive. This episode is about strikes and how to prevent them, how to prevent staff going on strike, how to prevent students going on strike. We have surveyed universities in Africa that have stable academic calendar. So we have asked the Vice-Chancellors, how have you done it? So in this episode, we're going to learn 1 or 2 or 3 tips about how to maintain a stable academic calendar and avoid strikes on campuses of African universities. So let us begin by looking at some issues relating to strikes in our university campuses. Between 2010 and 2014, studies showed that on the average per country, African universities were closed for a total of 2 months, and the closure was due about 3/4 of the time to staff union strikes, and about the 1/5 of the time to students' agitation, or what we call aluta in Nigeria. Now, there are a number of negative effects of strikes. We share some of these with you. One is that it disrupts the academic calendar. You want to start a session in September and finish in June, but on account of closure, 2 months, 3 months, then the calendar is disrupted. It interrupts the rhythm of the university, academic rhythm. It also depresses the quality of graduates. You want to run a session for 9 months, you end up running it for 7 months, and you cannot cover the syllabus or the curriculum, and then the graduates that are produced are largely half-baked. Strikes give very poor image of the university to the public, and also poor image of the country, because if many of the universities in the country go on strike, they will say, oh, in this country, don't go there. Universities are always on strike. The revenue there's loss of revenue to the university on account of strikes, and there's a negative psychological impact on staff and students. Internal efficiency of the university is also lowered, and there are quite a number of collateral negative effects, like when the university is closed and students are going home, accidents and students die, like we have some cases in some African countries, or the students may be at home, get pregnant, or fall into some bad gang. There are some positive effects anyway. Now, labor laws provide for human rights in terms of the worker to express himself or herself through strike. But that does not mean that you go on strike for months and months and months on end. But that provision is there. And so that's democracy. And it has been found that striking unions, either students or students or staff, win on a number of welfare issues. In Nigeria, for instance, it's on record that most of the gains that are made in terms of increase in salaries of staff were induced by actions of staff unions through strikes. Now we need to move on to listen to those who have run universities that are strike-free. We're going to begin with Professor Ishaq Oloyede, who ran a university in Nigeria. We had 128 universities at that time. His university was the one among the public universities that did not go on strike throughout his tenure as Vice-Chancellor. So we're going to listen to Professor Ishaq Oloyede, former Vice-Chancellor, University of Ilorin, Nigeria, and former President, Association of African Universities. He is currently the Secretary General of Association of West African Universities. Professor Ishaq Oloyede, share with us the tips. How did you make it?
Professor Ishaq Oloyede, I was the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ilorin. Concerning tips about how to make university stable and what we did at the University of Ilorin, well, the first issue is discipline. There must be discipline at the level of the leadership at the level of the faculty and at the level of the student. And this should not be negotiated. It's not negotiable. The second issue was staff and students' welfare, particularly given the socio-cultural situation in Africa. It is assumed that whenever there is inadequacy, it is assumed that the leadership is responsible for the inadequacy of resources. So the onus is on the leadership to be open, to be transparent in whatever, and to do the maximum possible to provide basic necessity. It is not by giving excuses to the staff, giving excuses to the students why you must fail, because the leadership was not forced to take the leadership. So if you must take it, you must believe that you have something to offer before taking the leadership. What we did at the University of Ilorin was to ensure that basic necessities of life are provided. Of course, at times we have to make some charges, and the students and staff will eagerly contribute to that, because once they trust the leadership, they will give. And again, the stakeholders, other stakeholders are to be carried along, because some of the issues disrupting higher education, particularly in Africa, are things that happen outside the university campus because of the nature of the students, the inadequacy of the hostels, and so on. And I believe that if you carry as we did, we carried along all the stakeholders, made the stakeholders be responsible and responsive to the yearnings and aspirations of the. And again, we must know that lack of funds is a universal problem. It should not be an excuse for non-performance. Many people, when they lack the ability to perform, they run to this issue, which is a generic thing that is common to everybody, and say it's lack of funds. I believe that within the funds available, a good manager, an efficient manager, you'll find a way of minimizing waste and improving efficiency. Regarding the issue of disruption of academic calendar through strikes by students and staff, one thing we did at the University of Ilorin was to call for consultation, ask all of us, students and staff, to see the effect of constant and disruptive strikes. And we all agreed that it was not good for the system. It's not about trading blames, but we all agreed that strike should be out of it. We should not disrupt we agreed on terms that, okay, administration will do this, for instance, providing water, electricity, ensuring that basic amenities are not disrupted, and to also ensure that the dues of staff and students are promptly given. So, and the staff and students also gave us a very firm commitment that they will keep their own. We had disagreement, and whenever we had disagreement, we know that the limit is that such disagreements should not disrupt academic calendar.
Thank you very much, Professor Oloyede, for those very rich insights. Well, let's leave Nigeria now and go to Tanzania, where we meet someone who ran a university for 10 years. Oh yes, 10 years without any strike. Professor Toli Mbwete will share with us tips on how he did it. Professor Mbwete.
My name is Professor Toli Mbwete, the former Vice-Chancellor of the Open University of Tanzania. With regard to my ability to run this university for 10 years without having any strike of staff or students, I think a manager needs to realize the critical importance of all the key constituencies in a university. And for me, I always made sure that both the staff members and the students had easy access to myself and my assistants. But I also had a practice of talking to the staff at the end of every council meeting to brief them on what had taken place. They also had the chance of asking questions. And you could see that over the time, the number of questions they had to ask me was getting lower, to the extent that there was no real need for the staff to resort to use the strike mode. And also I had allowed the trade unions to bring any of their problems at any time if they feel that.
Good afternoon, ladies.
With regard to the role of the trade unions, it is important to give them the opportunity to air to management any issues that they may have that they wish to be resolved, and to also discuss with them realistically on what can be done in time and what would need to await. So for these reasons, we were able to agree on different issues. They would go back and tell their colleague. In fact, the meetings which I had with the staff, the chair of the meeting was the chairman of the Workers' Council. He was the one chairing the meeting, and I was there just as a spokesperson, and the same chair would also moderate the question session. And subsequently, I always organized for sessions of having cocktails with the staff. Those who couldn't ask questions would have another opportunity to ask me any follow-up questions. With regard to the student leaders, as you know, Open University Tanzania has students all over the country, and some are outside the country. So it was necessary to make sure that the student leaders could communicate with management at all times. And we also introduced the top management of students in the internal communication mail system for the regular circular that we are sent electronically. And I made an effort to talk to the students at the beginning of the academic year. And over the years, I always used to visit students in the centers. They really like to physically see leaders from the headquarters who can explain some of the issues that they are facing. But I also learned over the time that the visit to the centers were very important, because sometimes they were facing some very trivial problems that I could solve within the 1 or 2 days when I was in those centers. So that visit always enables you to realize which would be the next center to be habitated, depending on the situation. And I'm proud to say by the time I left, we had improved all the facilities in the regions to an acceptable standard. And where we couldn't build our own facility, we were able to rent a decent place where people would come and study without any problems, as well as having wireless internet in all these centers to ensure students can access internet even outside office hours.
Thank you very much, Professor Toli Mbete, who is the current chair of the Council of Pan-African University. Next up is Zimbabwe. And we're going to be hearing from Professor Wiseman Magwa, who is Vice-Chancellor, Reformed Church University. He has been running a great university strike-free. Professor Wiseman, give us your tips.
My name is Professor Wiseman Magwa, Vice-Chancellor of the Reformed Church University in Zimbabwe. With regards unrest between staff and students in universities, there are several ways that we can use to really avert this kind of problems in universities. One such way is to have a dialogue with our students. The students and staff must be engaged in all the decisions that management will make. This will really minimize the problems that we have in universities. One good example is a situation where fees maybe can be raised. Fees, we need students, we need staff representations to approve and accept the fees revisions. And that way, I would like to believe it will help us, it will go a long way in minimizing these challenges in universities. Thank you. Regarding staff in connection with the unrest in universities, my view is that it's similar to that I have given with regards to the students, that there must be one dialogue with the staff in the things that affect them. Secondly, the Vice-Chancellor, all Vice-Chancellors, it is my opinion, should have cordial relations with staff unions, particularly the heads of those unions. That will also assist in creating a harmonious relationship between the university management and its staff. And then finally, I also want to advise Vice-Chancellors not to promise too much to staff, because you will not be able to provide those promises. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Wiseman Magwa. Our Africa-wide tour in search of tips for running strike-free universities now takes us to Nigeria. And we're going to be hearing from Professor Paul Omojo-Omaji, who, as Vice-Chancellor, Salem University, Lokoja, Nigeria, ran a strike-free university. Professor Omaji.
Professor Paul Omojo-Omaji is my name. I'm a former Vice-Chancellor of Salem University, Lokoja, in Nigeria. With regard to running a stable academic environment, we had to do three key things. One, we had clearly defined code of conduct. We had clearly defined conditions of service, and the management was faithful in observing all these two frameworks. Number two, we also ensured that the parents of our students, worked with us to let their wards know that they were on the campus for nothing but for study. And thirdly, we also ensured that even though we were not having unions on the campus, whether among the students or among the staff, we were working with them to ensure that all the things that the unions would have fought for, the management was proactive in providing all those conditions.
Excellent tips, Professor Omaji. Our tour now takes us to the eastern part of Africa, so fasten your belts as we move on now to Kenya and meet with Professor Geoffrey M. Muluvi, who is Vice-Chancellor, Southeastern Kenya University. He has some very useful tips for us. Professor Muluvi.
My name is Professor Geoffrey Muluvi, the Vice-Chancellor of Southeastern Kenya University. We prevent strikes among staff and the students by making sure we engage with the continuous dialogue. We meet with the staff, the management meets with the staff at least once every semester, so that they can have an opportunity to hear their views on various issues and give suggestions on how the university should move forward, and then the management responds to the issues of concern raised by members of staff. And that way we really keep them informed of what we are doing. They understand the challenges we face, the progress we are making, and that creates harmony. In terms of the students, we make sure we engage their representative. One, we make sure that we have free and fair elections so that the students can elect the representatives of their choice without any interference from any quarter. Once that is done, we make sure that every month we have a meeting with the students' representatives. We also make sure that we communicate important issues to the students' community through memos, and also posting important information to our website, so that the students' community are also properly informed on what is happening. We also have in our website a feedback mechanism. They can file their complaints online, they can raise issues online, and then we also have an opportunity to respond. We make sure that we also have within the university compliments boxes where they can be able to give their suggestions, and they post all the issues of concern, and then we respond and get back.
Many thanks, Professor Muluvi, for those excellent tips. Our tour now takes us back to West Africa. This time we go into Ghana, and Professor Eric Dankwa of the University of Ghana will be sharing his thoughts with us on how we can run a strike-free university in Africa. Professor Dankwa.
I'm Eric Dankwa, a professor of plant genetics at the University of Ghana. I want to speak to how university vice-chancellors can influence academics so university calendars remain uninterrupted. Vice-chancellors must be abreast of development in universities and at all times ensure that they are able to lobby unions like the University Teachers Association to ensure that they are always in touch with their lecturers for academic years to continue. What they could do is to have informal meetings, lobbying, and they must also be in touch with government to make government understand university lecturers so that the university never goes on such strikes. University lecturers never go on such strikes. This is very important, and Vice-Chancellors must come down and from time to time understand the systems so that they know when to actually act.
Thank you for the tips, Professor Dankwa. And our last stop will take us to Mozambique. And we're meeting with the Vice-Chancellor as rector of one of the oldest universities, actually the oldest university in Mozambique, one of the flagship institutions, our institutions there, Eduardo Mondlane University in Maputo, Professor Orlando Quilambo. He will share with us tips on how he has been running his university strike-free. Professor Quilambo, Rector.
Yes, I'm Orlando Quilambo, the director of the Eduardo Mondlane University in Maputo, Mozambique. What we do in order to have the university strike-free is that we have organized ourselves in councils where the students and the staff are represented. We hope with this measure that they can present their problems and we can discuss with them. Every measure which we have to introduce, we discuss with them so that they know what is going on, and in that sense they can collaborate with the management.
Thank you very much, Professor Quilambo. That brings us to the end of our Africa-wide tour in search of tips for running universities strike-free. Let's now summarize. And our summary is an aggregate of the tips that we harvested from the Vice-Chancellors that we surveyed. 15 tips. There could be more, but let's roll. The first, and not in any particular order, the Vice-Chancellors will ensure that is open and transparent in its leadership and should provide maximum for the welfare of staff and students, because welfare issue that triggers strikes. Professor Oluyede emphasized it. Also, Professor Mbwete of Tanzania, Professor Magwa of Zimbabwe, Professor Maji of Nigeria. And number two, you must tell your staff and students union what you can do, what you can achieve now and what you can achieve later. You do not need to promise what you cannot fulfill. Professor Muluvi of Kenya underscored this. Also, Professor Magwa and Professor Mbwete. Number three, when you are admitting new students and you are employing new staff, you must watch out. Shine your eyes, as we say in Nigeria, to avoid those who have history of troublemaking. So you don't now put in all these, in quotes now, bad elements into your community. Number four, you should be proactive in meeting conditions that can trigger strikes. Professor Mbwete underscored this, also Professor Muluvi and Professor Oluyede of Nigeria. Number five, you should maintain cordial relations with those who are heading staff unions and those who are heading student unions. You must lobby the unions and try to hold informal meetings with them. Professor Dankwa from Ghana emphasized this. Number six, you should lobby government. You see, government and your proprietor provide the money to let you satisfy welfare needs. So you should lobby them to get increased funding so that you can address the welfare needs of staff and students. Professor Dankwa from Ghana, emphasized this. Number seven, carry the stakeholders outside the university along. Professor Oluyede of Nigeria, who ran University of Ilorin strike-free for 5 years. Even before that time as Deputy Vice-Chancellor, the university was also strike-free. What he is saying as a tip for us is that we should carry stakeholders, parents, council people, proprietor, everybody, let them be aware of what is happening. And when strike is brewing so that they are aware. Number eight, Professor Muluvi of Kenya mentioned this as a strategy that he uses. You keep suggestion boxes, complaints boxes strategically so that your staff, your students can share with you what are the issues that are burning. But more importantly, you must be able to respond quickly, not let the suggestions just rot in the boxes. Open the boxes frequently and address the complaints and suggestions. Number nine, unions will try to blackmail. So you should avoid having what you call skeletons in your cupboard that would threaten to expose. So you are a lame dog. If you have some bad things that you are doing as Vice-Chancellor, the union, staff and students will hammer on this and will hold you by the jugular. So avoid the blackmail by also avoiding your not having skeletons in your cupboard. Number 10, this was emphasized by all the Vice-Chancellors that were surveyed. Professor Olede of Nigeria, Professor Mboite, Tanzania, Professor Magwa, Zimbabwe, Professor Maji of Nigeria, Professor Muluvi of Kenya, Professor Dankwa in Ghana, and Professor Kwilambo of Mozambique. You maintain constant flow of information. All members of the university committee should know what is happening, especially with regard to finances in the university. Number 11, staff and students, give them what is due. Professor Olede underscored this as a useful tip. In return, you should extract service commitment. They should, it's a two-way traffic. You give them what is due. They must also be part of maintaining a strike-free university. Number 12, you should not yield to pressure to compromise laws and policies of the university. And number 13, there are some elder statesmen, some old professors, some people who are there in the university that you can label as elder statesmen. Cut them, be their friends, let them be on your side, so that when strikes are brewing or when the strikes are on, they can be useful arbiters. Number 14, strike is ended and you want to witch hunt. Do not do that. Do not witch hunt the ringleaders. But if they have breached or transgressed any law of the university, you apply sanctions that are appropriate. Number 15, which in my view, in the view of all those that were surveyed within this study of Vice-Chancellors and others, number 15, dialogue. We can't overstress the import of dialogue in resolving crisis, in solving, not allowing strikes to happen in our universities. So dialogue is the key. You should explore it to the fullest. So these are the 15 tips that we have been able to harvest for you.
Yes, welcome to the end of this episode. We hope you have learned one or two things about how you maintain stable academic calendar and avoid strikes on your campuses. We learned during the course of the session that dialogue is important, welfare of staff and students is important, and not promising what you cannot deliver is also important. So we hope that in the coming years and months, you maintain stable academic calendar on your campuses. All the very best.